and LT. Previous slide 1 of 3. Next slide. And GT. Alan Sears in 2014. He is one of the founders of Alliance Defending Freedom and was its longtime president until recently. Washington. The details were sparse when the event appeared this summer on Attorney General Jeff Sessions' public schedule. He would speak on religious liberty to a group called Alliance Defending Freedom. No exact location was specified. No news media would be allowed in. Only after an outcry over such secrecy in the anti-gay rights positions of its sponsor did a transcript of Mr. Sessions' remarks emerge on a conservative website. Many Americans have felt that their freedom to practice their faith has been under attack, he told the gathering in Orange County. Caliph. The challenges our nation faces today concerning our historic First Amendment right to the free exercise of our faith have become acute. Mr. Sessions' focus was not an accident. The First Amendment has become the most powerful weapon of social conservatives fighting to limit the separation of church and state and to roll back laws on same-sex marriage and abortion rights. Sign up for the Morning Briefing newsletter. Few groups have done more to advance this body of legal thinking than the Alliance Defending Freedom. It has a larger footprint than most, with more than 3,000 lawyers working on behalf of its causes around the world. And it is better financed, bringing in $51.5 million in revenue for the 2015-16 tax year, more than the American Civil Liberties Union. Among the Alliance's successes has been bringing cases involving relatively minor disputes to the Supreme Court, a law limiting the size of church signs, a church seeking funding for a playground, and winning rulings that establish major constitutional precedents. But it hopes to carve out an even wider sphere of protected religious expression this term when the justices are to hear 2 more of its cases. 1. A challenge to a California law that requires crisis pregnancy centers, which are run by abortion opponents, to provide women with information on how to obtain an abortion, and another in which it represents a Colorado baker who refused to make a cake for a gay couple's wedding. While the abortion case is the latest legal volley in a generation-long battle by social conservatives to limit the effect of Roe v. Wade, the Colorado baker's case, which the court will hear next month, will test whether groups like the Alliance can persuade the court to similarly blunt the sweep of Obergefell v. Hodges, the ruling that enshrined same-sex marriage into law, as well as the anti-discrimination laws protecting gay men and lesbians. If there is a battle somewhere to restrict protections for gay men, lesbians, or transgender people, chances are the Alliance is there fighting it. The Alliance has defended the owners of a wedding chapel in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, who did not want to perform same-sex ceremonies. It has tried to stop a Charlotte, N.C. law that gave transgender people the right to use the bathroom of their choice. It backed the failed attempt by the Arizona legislature in 2014 to allow businesses to cite religious freedom in turning away same-sex couples. We think that in a free society, people who believe that marriage is between a man and a woman shouldn't be coerced by the government to promote a different view of marriage, said Jeremy Tedesco, a senior counsel and vice president of United States Advocacy for the group, which is based in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have to figure out how to live in a society with pluralistic and diverse views. But civil liberties groups and gay rights advocates say that Alliance Defending Freedom's arguments about religious liberty and free expression mask another motivation, a deep-seated belief that gay people are immoral and that no one should be forced to recognize them as ordinary members of society. They are a very powerful part of this broader movement, which is trying to bring a very particular biblical worldview into dominance at all levels of government and society, said Peter Montgomery, a senior fellow at People for the American Way, a liberal advocacy group. They've got some very big very clear goals, said Mr. Montgomery, who has studied Alliance Defending Freedom since the group's founding in 1994. One of those goals was to defend laws that criminalized gay and lesbian sexual conduct. In a brief the Alliance filed urging the Supreme Court not to overturn a Texas law that made homosexual activity illegal. Its lawyers described gay men as diseased and as public health risks. The court decided 6-3 that the law was unconstitutional. The United States is not the only place the group has been active. Before Belize's highest court struck down a law last year that banned carnal intercourse against the order of nature, the group sent activists there to work with local lawyers who are trying to keep the prohibition in place. In India, an Alliance Defending Freedom affiliated lawyer was part of the legal team that has defended a similar law in the country's Supreme Court. That law remains in place, though the Indian court recently signaled that it may revisit the issue. And when Russia approved a law in 2013 that imposed a fine for what it called propagandizing non-traditional sexual relationships among minors, a move that led for calls to boycott the 2014 Olympics, their Alliance Defending Freedom produced a 9-page memo in support of the law, saying its aim was to safeguard the psychological or physical well-being of minors. Mr. Tedisco said the group had never supported the criminalization of homosexual activity in Belize and India. He noted, the laws the group supported applied to heterosexual sodomy as well. He described the Alliance's involvement in both countries as a small group of attorneys who wanted to resist the foreign activists that were trying to challenge their public health law. Asked if he and other Alliance lawyers believed gay men and lesbians were immoral, Mr. Tedisco said, I'm not going to get into what the Bible says or teaches about homosexuality. Alliance leaders have not always been so reticent. Alan Sears, one of the founders of the group and its longtime president until recently, wrote a book in 2003 with Craig Austin titled The Homosexual Agenda, in which they described possible consequences of same-sex marriage. Why not 2 men and 3 women? Or 2 men, 1 the woman, and a dog and a chimpanzee? The book said, this means marriage will be no better than anonymous sodomy in a bathhouse. How the Alliance is approaching the case of the Colorado baker, Jack Phillips, is an illustration of its evolving public relations strategy. Gone are the fiery denunciations of gay men and lesbians as sinners and reprobates. A sophisticated multimedia campaign, called Justice for Jack, portrays Mr. Phillips as the victim of heavy-handed state bureaucrats, set to soft piano music. One video describes how Mr. Phillips has received death threats, hateful phone calls, and lost 40% of his business. It's not about refusing business, Mr. Phillips' daughter says to the camera. It's about having the freedom for him to artistically create something that allows him to honor Christ. Donald Knapp, the Coeur d'Alene chapel owner who sued the city because he worried a new non-discrimination ordinance would force him to marry same-sex couples, said the Alliance not only took up his case but also provided him with media training and flew him to Scottsdale to meet with other Christian business owners in similar positions. The ADF was just trying to help us know what to say, how to state our position, what we believe in, Mr. Knapp said in an interview. They spend a great deal of time with us. Gay rights advocates acknowledge what they are up against. They know those are messages that work better, and they are no longer leading with the messages they used to, which are gay people are pedophiles and we need to keep them away from our kids, said James Essex, an ACLU lawyer who focuses on gender identity and sexual orientation issues. It's a very intentional shift, a very strategic shift. Back in Washington, the Alliance's close connections with Mr. Sessions' Justice Department seem to be deepening. In September, the department filed a brief arguing that Mr. Phillips should not be forced to violate his faith. There is no clear line between his speech and his clients. It said, he is giving effect to their message by crafting a unique product with his own two hands. Correction. November 22, 2017. This article has been revised to reflect the following correction. Because of an editing error, an earlier version of a capsule summary for this article misstated the name of a group that uses the First Amendment to challenge gay rights and abortion laws. It is the Alliance Defending Freedom, not the Alliance Defending Justice.